Hi, I'm Ian Mean, Director of Business West in Gloucestershire. I've been talking to one of Business West's non-executive directors, Mike Godfrey, about the closure of Honda in Swindon. Mike was in fact one of the first people to work for Honda. He's got a lifetime's experience of the UK motor industry and very insightful views about its future. Mike, you were one of the first people to work for Honda on that huge site. When were you not like number 2 employee?
Yeah, in the very early days, there were 5 of us, but the first 3 were Japanese, and the 4th and 5th, I was number 5 actually, were the first 2 UK people to join the company. But in those days, we were working from a temporary office in the south of Swindon, whilst the site was being sort of developed, having sort of groundbreaking in 1984, and I joined in towards the end of 85.
Yeah. So you had, did you have to learn Japanese pretty quickly?
Yeah. They didn't want us to originally, but they wanted to just speak English to improve their English, basically. So we didn't really speak that much Japanese, apart from when we went to Japan and we learned some of the basics there. But the Japanese, or the Honda Japanese approach, was very much, this factory is based here in the UK, that makes it English. So therefore, the language will be English.
Yeah, that's good. Now, tell us about those early years, because you, the parts actually, a lot of those were made over at Austin Rover at Longbridge in Birmingham, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, the history goes back way before 1984, really. It came really with Austin Rover and their needs for further product development, but it was pretty difficult for Austin Rover in those days. So a partnership with the brokerage of the UK government was established with Honda in Japan. And that culminated back in 1979 with the Triumph Acclaim, which was actually just a Honda Accord, really, built with parts shipped in from Japan. And that relationship developed further to the point where, to get over some of the EU import rules for Honda, Austin Rover were going to build cars for Honda in their factories in Birmingham and Oxford. And the whole role of, initially, of the Honda site in Swindon was to do a quality check on those cars. Honda weren't overly convinced that Austin Rover could maintain sustainable and consistent quality of their products. So our original task at the Honda factory was to establish a pre-delivery inspection centre and bring in the cars from the Longbridge factory and the Cowley factory and check the cars over, and if necessary, repair the cars and get them up to the Honda quality standard.
Don't you think that's sort of ironic now that, due to the history of Austin Rover, Leyland, whatever, they weren't renowned for quality, were they? Whereas now the Japanese product is seen as an absolute quality car.
Yeah, there's 2 issues here. One, the Japanese ethos was very much to design the car, not just for the satisfaction of the customer, but also to enable it to be manufactured with high quality. So you sort of, the Japanese word pokiyoki, you make it idiot-proof. So basically, you know, the line worker has a much easier task to assemble and get good quality product. Austin Rover at the time couldn't get that consistent quality. Sometimes it was a great car. I'm not going to talk about Friday cars, that's not relevant, but you know, the next car down the line would be awful. So it's just that consistent, sustainable quality, which unfortunately at the time they couldn't achieve. But we spent a lot of time working with them on their production lines, both at Birmingham and at Cowley. And over time, it did take time, their quality definitely improved.
Why do you think there was that sort of sea change? I mean, I remember Honda I was chief news editor of the Birmingham Mail 35 years ago, and the stories were legend. Long bridge strikes, bad quality.
Yep.
That's all turned round, hasn't it? You know, the perception of the Japanese car is now totally different.
Absolutely. I mean, the first task we had was to convince Austin Rover that their quality was not sufficient, was not good enough. They always believed it was okay. But the reality was their dealers were taking a lot of the flack and a lot of the issues in repairing the cars. Whereas what Honda wanted to do was to achieve that high quality consistently on the production line. So we had to almost convince them that actually your quality is not that good. And we did that quite simply. We just brought in 50 Honda cars from Japan. We didn't do anything with them. We didn't check them. We said, look, there's 50 cars straight off the production line. They've come across the water from Japan. You have a look at those and see what you think. And of course, you're going to, if you inspect a car close enough, you'll find a few problems. The average number of faults probably on the Honda cars was probably about 3 per car. And they were so minor, we probably wouldn't even bother to repair them. We then did another 50 Austin Rover built cars, and we found an average of about 40 faults per car.
40 faults a car.
And most of those had to be repaired. So we just said, look, this is what we're talking about, guys. This is the difference between a car made in Japan and a car made on your production lines. You can get the occasional good car, but you can't produce consistent quality. That was an eye-opener for them. And they suddenly went away and they wanted to learn. People went to Japan to the Honda production lines to see what was different. They worked with the design engineers to design in quality. And over time, it did take 4 or 5 years, the quality did improve. So from 40 faults per car, we were single figures by the end of the...
Mike, what was the difference in working there? Was it a process, a system?
Yeah, the systems and the processes were, as I say, they were designed to A, be idiot-proof, and B, were designed to make, because building a car, standing up for 8 hours a day is hard work, and to produce also great quality at the same time is very difficult unless you've got all the help around you. So the car was designed right, the logistics was right, so only the parts that the production associate needed to build the car was delivered to the line. So there wasn't any spare parts on the line or wrong parts. They just had the right parts. So the processes were right, the design was right, and the mentality and the aptitude and the attitude was totally different. And that's the sort of thing we wanted. And when Honda recruited associates, we didn't recruit from the automotive industry. We were looking for, I can't say this because of age discrimination, but we recruited primarily in those days young people who had the right aptitude and attitude, who wanted to learn and wanted to make themselves better and to improve their working life. And that's what we did. That's what made the difference.
Yeah, but also, didn't you have a great base in the skilled people from who'd been made redundant from the wagon works in Swindon? You had an engineering base.
That's what Honda is really about. It's an engineering-based company. That's one reason why sometimes they don't sort of succeed so well, because they don't sell product, but they can design and manufacture and engineer a great vehicle. And one reason Honda did come to Swindon, and basically, if you go back to 1982, 83, Swindon wasn't on the radar for Honda. They were planning to build their own car factory or inspection facility and car factory. But almost like Toyota and Nissan, they were going into centres of where there was an automotive supply base in the UK. Swindon doesn't have a supply base. It did have the pressed steel works, which BMW eventually did and have taken over. But the conventional supply base was still in the Midlands. And it was only when the railway works were closing in 1984 and this very large site at South Marston, the old Vickers Airfield site, came on the market, plus Swindon Borough Council suddenly waking up and realizing that the manufacturing base was going out of Swindon with the railway works closing, that they really wanted to attract Honda to the town. So they strongly supported the planning application. Honda looked at the high level of skill that was available in the town. Also, not just engineering, but also there's a quite strong military sort of ethos and background around Swindon and primarily Wiltshire. And again, the military concept of uniform discipline was also very attractive to Honda as well. Add to the fact Swindon is very much on a crossroads. It's a great logistics place. You've got the A419 heading up to the Midlands north. You've got east-west on the M4 to Bristol, the docks, to London Airport, and also south on the A34 to Southampton docks. So it's a great logistical site as well. So put in the fact you've got a big site, you've got great logistics, you've got a great workforce. Actually, Swindon came on the map quite late, actually very quickly came to the top, and Honda made that decision in '84.
What in terms of personal memories now, because you left, what, 6 or 7 years ago?
Oh, more, about 10 years now.
10 years. But you're still, aren't you still a key person in their pension fund?
Yes. When I left in 2011, they suddenly realized they didn't have anybody to run the pension fund. So they asked me to stay on as a contractor doing that work. So I'm still doing that at the moment, but with the factory shutting down and sort of unfortunately 3,000 people being made redundant as of last Friday. There's quite a few of them now considering their pension options, which is making my work quite busy at the moment. And I will stop doing that work at the end of this year, so that'll end my relationship completely.
Yeah, I mean, you've had a lifetime in the motor industry. You've got an OBE for your work. You worked at Vauxhall first of all, didn't you?
That's right. Oh gosh, you've done some research. Yeah, I was a graduate engineer and employed by Vauxhall Motors in Luton, and also the Bedford Truck Division in Dunstable as well. So I've always been in the automotive industry, and I say I joined Honda from Vauxhall back in 1985.
And where are we going with our motor industry in this country? We don't have much left, do we, apart from the very specialist area in that, like Land Rover Jaguar?
I'm not sure if we have. If you take Jaguar Land Rover out, which is actually owned by Tata, we don't really have a UK owned stroke based car industry anymore, apart from some niche ones like Morgan, I guess. So it's dominated by Nissan up in the northeast, and obviously we're very pleased to see that despite Brexit and all the other issues, that Nissan will continue to develop new models and also move ahead on battery production and electric vehicle production as well. Undoubtedly, Toyota, Rover, Land Rover, Jaguar will have to move in that same direction with the legislation changing in 2030. Is this sustainable? If you are foreign owned, where is your first priority in terms of future and significant investment? It's got to be in your home country at the end of the day. So
as Honda have decided, presumably.
As Honda has decided, I mean, Honda's decision, if I put my business hat on, I get it. I really do get it. We've seen the amount of money that Nissan needs to invest up in the northeast, and Honda have already invested that sort of money in China, America, and Japan itself, where the market for Honda is significantly larger than the European market. So from a pure business viewpoint, I get it in terms of future. But you add on top of that problems with Honda, financial global crises, earthquakes in Japan, nuclear disasters in Japan, Brexit, although Honda will deny Brexit was an issue, but it has to be at the end of the day, and the cost of electrification. It's a perfect storm. And so with a business hat on, I get it. From a personal hat on, I still am quite devastated, certainly for all those people.
Yeah. And what about the electric car future and net zero? What are your thoughts on that, Mike, looking forward?
It has to be part of the solution, but it's not the solution. Batteries themselves are not sustainable. The rare metals required, the electricity production required, the battery chargers that are required, not having fully thought through by the government. I understand the net zero, the 2030 target, but there's no action plan behind it. So I am worried that electric cars seem to be, from the government viewpoint, the answer. It's part of the answer. The final solution has to be hydrogen and fuel cells. And that's something I was very keen on when I was working with Honda as well.
And of course, you have an element of that in Swindon, don't you, in the hydrogen hub there?
We've got the hydrogen hub in Swindon. We've got, unfortunately, one non-functioning hydrogen station on the Honda site, but we've got another one now at Johnson Matthey on junction 16. And we've got about 14 or 15 hydrogen fuel cell cars running around Swindon. And I think even Business West has a hydrogen powered fuel cell car. So again, that's part of our.
So would you say, Mike, with your experience, that for next 20 years, hydrogen is the real future rather than electric?
Yes. Basically, a hydrogen fuel cell, again, is working by mixing hydrogen and air and producing from that chemical reaction electricity to drive electric motors to drive the vehicle. And the only thing that comes out of the tailpipe is water. So zero pollution. The key issue is, how do you manufacture that hydrogen? You have to basically split water or strip it out of natural gas. That takes energy. So brown energy is no good in terms of, or brown hydrogen rather, is no good, where it's using conventional carbon fuels to split out the hydrogen at high temperatures. So we need to ensure that the hydrogen is manufactured from sustainable energy. So that's wind power or solar power. And the hydrogen refueling station at Honda was actually powered by solar cells. So we were manufacturing hydrogen on the Honda site sustainably. That's how it has to be. Now, it's not economically viable yet. There's no mass volume behind it, but it's going to come. Hydrogen is the most abundant substance in the universe. It ain't going to run out anytime soon. So as long as we can produce that hydrogen in the purity required with sustainable energy, and when you drive your car, you've got a 300-mile plus range, so the range fright doesn't exist. As long as you've got refueling stations available and that hydrogen is produced from sustainable energy, that is the future. Electricity, battery powered, it's an interim step.
Yeah. Thanks. You've had a great innings, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ian. All the best to you.